Hi, everybody. I brought up in the past that my very first job out of high school was working as a tour guide in the New York Transit Museum. If you ever go to New York City for business or for pleasure, and you have some time to kill, go to downtown Brooklyn and visit the New York Transit Museum. It's set in a retired subway station, which was the old Court Street IND station. It was a shuttle stop for what used to be called the HH shuttle, and it ran in between Court Street, which is now the museum, as well as Hoyt Street, which is served by the A train, the C train, and the G train. And that two stop connection has very often been used as a backdrop for TV shows and movies that feature subway scenes. If you've seen Monk, I've mentioned I like the TV show Monk. There was part of the subway scene sequence that was filmed at the Hoyt Street station. If you've seen early episodes of Law and Order, I actually saw the scene for the one of the first episodes of Law and Order being filmed at Hoyt Street. Had I known at the time, I could have been an extra in that scene. Working in the New York Transit Museum, I could say that I kind of work in the system. If you've seen the original Death Wish, there are parts of the subway scenes that are filmed in both the Hoyt Street station and the Court Street station, now the Transit Museum. Beat Street was filmed in the museum. The Warriors, everybody remembers Warriors come out to play. Well, they had subway footage filmed down between those two stations. That's probably the greatest movie of all time, featuring New York City subway footage, The Warriors. And many others I can't even think of right now. But there are people who can't stand the subway system, especially the ones who wrote it in the 70s and 80s, as I did. My mother didn't mind it. My uncle kind of liked it. My father couldn't stand it. But I loved it because I could see the potential in it. Even with all the graffiti ridden filth, the dilapidated trains, the trains that were hot in the summer and cold in the winter, there was just something so exciting about riding the New York City subway. Now it's good, and it's good to see that it's expanding as well, with the Second Avenue line having finally opened up after almost a century of delay, and the 7 train now serving 34th Street, Hudson Yards. It feels a bit stale. I mean, it's one thing to have a clean subway system, but it's not as thrilling as it used to be. I will say that my favorite portion of the subway system is what used to be called the BMT Southern Division. And that's the 4 trains that go to Coney Island, the D, the F, the N, and the Q. Anything that leads to Coney Island is my favorite part of the subway. And that's even taking into account the Rockaway line. And I lived in the Rockaways. As much as I love the Rockaways, I loved anything that went to Coney Island because the views are spectacular. As you're going up to Coney Island, you're seeing Astroland Park and the Atlantic Ocean. And, well, you just have to see it for yourself. It's really beautiful. Now, the most thrilling ride you could get for your subway fare, having said all that, would be the 4 and 5 trains, the Lexington Avenue Express trains. They make express stops only in between Brooklyn Bridge and 125th Street. And the speed that some of those trains will gather up as they go in between express stop to express stop is mind boggling. I mean, to me, it was more exciting than any roller coaster you could ever be on. When you're standing at the front end of the 4 train and you're looking out the front window of the first car like you used to when the older cars were in service, you can't do it now. And just having the train roar in between Brooklyn Bridge and 14th Street Union Square. I don't know how anybody could call riding the subway boring if they've ever experienced that, because it's a rush. It really is. And as a kid, I used to wonder why Lionel and Bachman and other companies didn't have models of the New York City subway that you could put in train sets, and they have them now. Over the last 10 to 15 years, they've been in production. Before that, you had to be like a serious model train hobbyist to make your own. And there used to be a gentleman who maintained all the old subway cars in the Transit Museum who did that himself as a hobby with balsa wood. He would construct miniature, like HO-sized, HO scale subway cars and used to run them around on his train set. And I think now it's better that I didn't have any of those subway train sets, because I don't think I ever would have left my room. I would just be pretending to ride the subway, playing with that little train set of subway cars in my room. And that's how I feel now. Why should I buy a set of a 4-car subway train when I could just go ride the real thing and save a whole lot of money in the process? And that's how I feel now. I can't wait to go back to New York City because I'm dying for a subway ride. Probably to Coney Island. And as a wise man once said, that's all I have to say about that. And that's how I feel about the New York City subway. But you really do owe it to yourself. You'd be pleasantly surprised, impressed, and really intrigued by what you might see at the Transit Museum. You might even recognize a few things as you go through it. So have fun and have a good trip. We'll see you next time.